Hey, we're live. Welcome back, everyone, to the Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football Podcast. I have my ever beautiful host, Jacob Trowbridge, with me tonight, as usual. This is the duo here. We don't fly solo on our podcast. Welcome in, Jake. How are you doing this evening?
So freaking good, because I've got 1 week's worth of NFL games in my veins, sir. So I'm doing spectacular. How are you?
Same. I mean, what is there not to like about NFL? I swear, for one day on Sunday, it felt like life was back to normal and everything was great. Watching football all day, having some brews, eating some nachos, watching football, literally from pre-gaming at 10 o'clock in the morning until I went to bed Sunday night with doubleheader, or I was thinking Monday night, but the Sunday night game. It was just freaking terrific. It was so nice to have that sense of normalcy again. And I think everybody can agree with me on that.
For sure. It just felt right. Like all was right with the world for that day. And yeah, it was like a good version of the Twilight Zone. Like, well, this doesn't wait. This is what life was like once upon a time. Exactly. Yeah, it was beautiful. And the games, I didn't see as much sloppiness in the games as I thought I was going to with this week, just because of the short off season and all that. That's been the talk all these last couple of months leading up to everything. I've certainly been talking about that and expecting that. But no, man, they were great. I loved every goddamn minute of it.
Yeah, I expected the defenses to be a little bit rustier than they were. Kind of like what we saw with the lockout season back in 2011, how the offenses really pushed the envelope kind of the first portion of the season, and then the defenses, had to catch up. And once they did, then it, kind of evened out a little bit. But I thought defenses played pretty well too. Seems like maybe either both sides of the ball were affected the same or either not affected at all. So it was fun. It was great to have it back. Unfortunately, my fantasy teams did not do so hot over the weekend. We can lament on that a little later here. But we're getting into the episode here. Before we do, what are we drinking this week? I'll lead us off because I was really happy to find this beer. I know I was telling you about it this weekend. I saved it specifically for the podcast. Did not get into it until tonight. Very special beer. This is from Great Lakes Brewing Company, which we featured them many times on our podcast. They just do great beer, solid all around. It is just simply called 73 Kolsch. Let me get this on the camera here for our viewers. And it's got
looks so good.
Our favorite Wisconsin tackle, or one of our favorite Wisconsin tackles. We've had so many of them. Humble brag, Wisconsin. Joe Thomas. So this beer was, I'll just read what it says here on the actual label.
Please do.
Think you've earned this beer? ? Try playing 10,363 consecutive snaps. To thank Joe Thomas for his dedication to Cleveland on and off the gridiron, we huddled with the man himself to brew this crisp, refreshing, tailgate-worthy ale. And it is a tailgating-worthy ale. It is delicious, crushable. Oh, it's so good.
And it kind of rubs salt into the wounds of this whole weekend with the Browns. I bet they would sure love old Joe Thomas back after outing that they had this week. No, I'm very curious. So is this beer as crushable as I hope that it is?
It really is. Yes. I gave it a solid 3.75 on Untappd, which folks out there, you can find us at drinking_fantasy on Untappd.
That's right. Go rate your beers and tell us about them. We need new beers. Always want and need new beers. For example, I'm not even drinking a beer tonight, at least to start. I'm sure down the road. I have some reserves here, but I am actually starting off with a little mixed concoction. Nice. So I'm doing a big faux pas because you are not supposed to mix scotch with other things. That's a giant faux pas for scotch drinkers. I don't care. I'm doing it anyways. I've mixed a Speyside Glenlivet Balnellen. I don't even know how to pronounce this thing. It's a 12-year single malt scotch with hot cider to really get myself into this fall vibe. I just fucking went for it. You know what?
That's acceptable to me.
It's
I'll
delightful.
Accept it.
It's very delightful.
It sounds really delightful. I'm not going to lie. That sounds great.
Warms my soul. But I did bring a reserve beer, of course, because I don't know how long that's going to last. A Hillsborough blonde walks into a bar, which I've had many times and I love.
I love the name. That is nice. Okay. So should we get into our drunk trade of the week?
Absolutely, we should. So this one is very special this week. Yes. This one's very special. So this comes from a league of mine. I did not solicit this trade, so I apologize to those involved if you didn't want me talking about it. But also, if you didn't want me talking about it, you shouldn't have made it within my eyes. So this comes from my Dynasty League, which is the Chicks versus Dicks Dynasty League. That is the name of this league. It has some of my all-time favorite people in it. One of those people, at Alexa Trade Talk, openly admitted to being drunk after the fact the next morning after this went through. So the trade was she acquired Bryan Edwards in exchange for Anthony Miller, a 2021 second and 2021 third. First thoughts, Dustin.
It's an overpay for Bryan Edwards, definitely, especially since you could get him, this year. He was kind of a second round pick, I believe, in most rookie drafts. I know he fell in the NFL draft a bit due to injury concern. From what I've seen about him, I really like him, and I think he's got a bright future in the NFL. I know this last week he kind of sputtered a little bit, but this is the perfect time to pick him up. Getting back to the actual trade itself, it's an overpay, but it's not egregious by any means. Anthony Miller, I'm kind of losing the luster on him. He keeps seeming to get injured. I haven't seen anything yet from him. I was really high on him as a rookie, and even last year I was like, oh, his rookie season he was injured. We'll just brush that off. He's going to come back strong. They don't have a lot of weapons on offense there with the Bears. He's got to do something, and he didn't really do a whole lot last year. So
he did have a good week one, if that means anything to you. He put up 4 receptions for 76 yards and a touchdown. So a great week one outing, at least, to kick things off nicely.
Do you know who else had a great week one this week? Corey Davis.
Don't you dare. You're going to use Corey Davis's name to shout down every good week one performance. And you're basically wiping the slate clean for this week and saying, well, if Corey Davis could do it.
1 week does a season not make. If you start stringing these together, then I will change my tune on Anthony Miller. I'm just saying, it was week one. A lot of crazy things happened this weekend. But
that's better than a 1 catch for 12-yard outing, like maybe you might have expected from him coming out of the gate. That's all I'm saying here. That's all I'm saying.
Point to you, sir. I will concede. And then a second, the third round pick's like whatever. It's more of a throw in at that point. So Anthony Miller and a second, it's probably a slight overpay, but I wouldn't call it egregious, especially since I think Bryan Edwards has a higher ceiling than Anthony Miller at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, the only thing about this trade, this happened well before any of those Allen Robinson trade rumors started sprouting up over the last day or so, I don't think that Allen Robinson actually gets traded. I think it's just hardball with the contract to try and get that extension. And it was a power move.
Like it's squashed already from reports is that he's talked to the coach and the GM and things are better.
He's basically just saying it's not going to be a distraction for him. So I think there's still a chance that it could come back later in the season, maybe if things don't go the way that he wants. Like, I think it's tabled. I don't think he just doesn't want to be the distraction, which is great. If for some reason A-Rob actually got traded, all of a sudden this trade becomes a lot more lopsided in my view. But yeah, until or if that happens, then as of now, like you said, it's a slight overpay. But in terms of drug trades, and even in terms of drunk trades within this league, this is really not that bad, I don't think.
No. One of the more milder ones we've had. But just the fact that she admitted she was drunk just makes it that much better.
She did. The next morning, the very first message came from Alexa. She said, "Welp, drunk Alexa apparently made a trade last night." So talked in the third person, which I automatically love. freely admitted to basically blacking out because of all of the football excitement the night before. So I'm on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to circle back with Allen Robinson here really quick, this is the last year of his contract. So I feel like this trade rumor is just more of him saying like, hey, I'm out after this year. Don't plan on me signing a long-term deal just because I've had garbage quarterbacks thrown to me my entire career. And I'll probably choose somewhere else where I can actually go and showcase my talent and have a good quarterback throwing to me.
You remember when he had the option to come to Green Bay and he passed on Green Bay for Chicago? Yeah, that's kind of what you get.
Yeah, he's kind of kicking himself in the ass right now. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I mean, I am too a little bit kicking him in the ass because how much would you have loved to see Devontae Adams and Allen Robinson with Aaron Rodgers?
Ooh, I just got a little tingly down in the nether regions just talking about it.
Anyway, successful drunk trade. I would give this just a few sips of this very strong Scotch cider.
Yeah, I'd give it like half a Kolsch.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah. So we'll get into the meat of our episode here. We'll do a little bit of an injury update. I think we should continue to give our listeners just a little update and fantasy impact moving forward. And then we will do a little rewind from this weekend, talk a little week one, some winner chicken dinners, the guys that won you your fantasy weeks this week. And then the other side of it, as I so titled, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, the guys that just broke your heart and make you mope around all day long like the teenager at heart you are.
I love that. I love the subtitle that you gave that section of this episode. I do wonder how many people under the age of 30 got that reference. I'll be very curious.
Yes, please comment on our Twitter page if you understand this reference. Maybe we'll have to put out a poll on that once we get the show out there. How many people got the reference, yes or no?
Oh, here's an idea. First person to tell us what that reference is from on our Twitter page, that's at Drinking Fantasy, gets a personalized message from one of us to smack talk a league mate for them on their behalf. How about that?
Oh, I like that. That is terrific, Jake. Good idea. So get out there, folks, and do that. For our audio-only listeners, I will try to get this out as soon as possible so that you are not behind the 8-ball. But all the more reason that you should be watching this live and paying attention as it spews out of our mouths. So then after that, we will touch on some week 2, give our start of the week and our potential bust of the week this week. So let's get into it. Our winner. Nope, I lied. I got ahead of myself. I was really excited because I love my titles for my segments this week.
I know you do, but we have some due diligence to take care of before we get into that.
Injuries first. We'll talk little down, little bummers. So let's talk injury updates here. Deebo Samuel has had a setback. Wah, wah, wah. We should have saw this coming. Let's be honest. It all seemed like he was trying to come back really fast from this injury he had over the summer. So he is out. He's on injured reserve. I think it's only the 3-week injured reserve at this point.
That's right.
But disappointing nonetheless. I think we were all excited for him to start and be a part of the game since, he had such a great end of the season last year, but looks like that's going to have to wait for a few weeks, unfortunately. This next one just breaks my heart because I have him on a couple of rosters and I really truly believe, other than my boy Jonnu Smith, he was like second on my like big breakout list for this season. And that's Blake Jarwin, out for the year. Makes me so sad. And it was a non-contact injury, which you hate to see. I mean, you hate to see injury anytime, but when it's, one of those freak things where you don't even get touched, it's just, it just hurts that much more. So the Blake Jarwin hype train done for another year, unfortunately. This one's definitely, next one is something to keep an eye on. It's George Kittle. This one could affect him for multiple weeks here. And it'll be interesting to see what the Niners actually do with him if they decide to rest him. I know he is a warrior and wants to play, and he's got, he's that old school football player where he doesn't care about his body. He will go out and do whatever needs to get done. He loves the game.
But he's not practicing this week. Now that
right.
could just be just rest him up, right? Because it's his knee, and it's the Jets that they're playing this weekend. So it could be a twofold factor in there. One is to just rest him up, and two is please don't let him get hurt in practice leading up to playing the Jets, because that's not a risk they need to take. But that could also lead them to sit him for this weekend.
I was going to say, it's the Jets. Do they probably really need him this week? No, they could probably afford to rest him. It's a long season. You would hate for him to get injured even more and then miss him for big chunks of the season, especially in the NFC West, which is going to be a terrific division, very competitive. So definitely keep an eye on that.
I think he sits and then fire up Jordan Reed.
Yeah.
Let him have this one game.
And hopefully he stays healthy. We'll knock on wood. Next, Boston Scott got injured this weekend. Keep an eye on that. Poor Philadelphia. They just cannot keep people healthy there. It's so unfortunate. All it says is it's a lower body injury, and they have no idea if he's going to be available or not. So definitely keep an eye on that. Another tight end going on IR, David Njoku. Actually, after he flashed a little bit this weekend, much to my chagrin, because my Austin Hooper shares hated that. He was not supposed to be featured. It's supposed to be the Austin Hooper show.
It might be now.
It might be now. We'll see. I'm not too sure about anything on that Cleveland offense right now. Mm-hmm. But, Njoku's on IR. Jordan Howard, he's out.
That one's weird. The Jordan Howard one is still weird. I don't know. There's not a ton of information to work off of with the Jordan Howard one. And I don't know do you know if it's even expected to be a long-term deal?
It doesn't say here. I'm on Pro Football Reference, checking it out. And it just says it's the hamstring. It's unknown if he'll play against the Bills. I mean, a hamstring, he'll probably sit out. I mean, Myles Gaskin really stepped up in his place, and you do have Matt Breida. Chances are he'll probably sit, but with the questionable designation, you never know. He could come back. So again, kind of keep an eyeball on that. Duke Johnson, he left the game with injury. Fire up those David Johnson shares. If you weren't on board with that after this last week, now you really should be. He is questionable with an ankle injury. It doesn't say if it's the high ankle sprain or just a quote unquote regular ankle sprain. But if it's that high ankle sprain, chances are he's going to miss, up to a month at least with that. So if you're relying on Duke Johnson, go hit up your waiver wire.
I'm waiting on the Texans to sign another running back because Bill O'Brien would do that. I would not be shocked if it's a long-term thing with the high ankle sprain, if that's really what it turns out to be, if they tried their hardest to overpay Devonta Freeman to come and back up David Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And this one is so disappointing to see because he was kind of getting shit on all offseason long, unfortunately. That's Marlon Mack with the Colts, out for the season. But for all those Jonathan Taylor truthers, oh, buddy, is he just going to step right into that workload? Fire him up, RB1 rest of the way.
To fucking Mars. To the RB1 weeks could be in his future.
Mm-hmm.
Saying it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lev Bell, he's on IR with a hamstring injury. Did you hear what Mr. Adam Gase said about the Lev Bell situation?
No. Enlighten me with this wonderful quote of his.
I will paraphrase this. This is not word for word. But basically he said, yeah, I wish I wouldn't have put Lev back in the game after he tweaked his hamstring. obviously we know that Gase does not want Lev Bell there, does not like him. So I think this was a spiteful move to get him injured more so that he doesn't have to play him.
That dude has zero bedside manner. And zero coaching ability, but really it's the bedside manner that I take the greatest umbrage with.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one I think I want to touch on is Gerald Everett, tight end for the Rams. He is probable, it says, left with a back injury last week. But if for some reason it gets worse and he does not play, fire up those Higbee shares because he is going to get all the targets with Everett being.
You were high on Everett coming into this season, so this has to be an extra bit of a bummer for you.
It really is. It really is. And I know last week it was kind of it was very split until he left the game. So it's disappointing, but it's fantasy football. What are you going to do?
It's fantasy football, baby. You got to roll
lumps
with the numerous lumps that are coming after week one. I mean, the one that we didn't talk about, and we have to, it's Michael Thomas, because I'm nervous as all hell. And I know we don't have enough information really, but we have to talk about Mike quickly. It's just, it could be weeks at this point, and he's the kind of guy who would want to gut it out and play through his injury. But are they going to even let him? Is that even a realistic possibility? I think at least 3 to 4 weeks you have to count on not having Michael Thomas.
At least full strength. I personally think that he will end up playing. It could be more of a decoy situation, though, than actually being of fantasy value. I have him in a league, and I probably will not be playing him here for the next couple weeks at a minimum until either I see him start to perform better, it looks like he's got good movement, or until he's actually sat out for a number of weeks and then comes back and plays. But yeah, you hate to see these high ankle sprains. These are ones that linger multiple weeks, even after the players try to come back. We saw it last year with Kamara. We saw it with Barkley last year. Even when they came back after missing, 2 to 4 weeks, it took them another 3 to 4 weeks before they got back up to full speed. And we saw them playing, pre-injury. So yeah, this is not good for Michael Thomas. Definitely puts a damper on him trying to repeat as the number one wide receiver again this season.
Agreed. It's a bummer because I do love watching Michael Thomas play. Obviously, I have him on a couple of rosters and would love for him to be able to come back, but I don't want him to rush back. Not only for his own health, but for fantasy reasons. Mm-hmm. I would hate to see him rush back and then you feel forced into playing him without that time rested. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could even stand to see him on my bench if he's active and on the field. I think it would be too hard to not at least play him as a flex option.
It's going to be some interesting decisions for me. But let's be honest. If you are the Saints, there's no reason to rush him back other than he wants to be on the field and play. They've got so many weapons on that offense with Emmanuel Sanders now. You got Jared Cook, Kamara, Latavius Murray, Traquan Smith, maybe.
They like him.
So it's not like they're in desperate need of having weapons. It's not like last year when Devontae Adams went out for the Packers here. We're like, who the hell is going to step up? Like, there is no established like number 2 on the team or another receiving option that could take those targets and take on that mantle. Where with the Saints, I feel like that's no issue. So if they're smart, they would sit him for a couple of weeks at a minimum so that they have him for the rest of the season unhampered, but we'll see what happens.
And one other really quick one, because it just came through this afternoon. Chris Godwin is in the concussion protocol. So if he's cleared and they play him, then great. There's no concern about having to sit him because it's not the type of injury where you have to worry about that. But it might be tricky to get him into the game this weekend.
Yeah, it is a little concerning that he went into the concussion protocol today as opposed to like Sunday evening after the game was done. So definitely something to keep an eye on, because if this came on late, it's typically a little bit later in the week for them to be able to come back and play on Sunday. Usually it takes a full week at a minimum for them to pass through the concussion protocol. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on that because that would be a big one.
Truth. All right, let's wipe our hands of the ickiness that is injuries and let's skedaddle into something a little bit more positive here.
Yes. The segment I was trying to say earlier, the winner chicken dinner segment. So these are players that probably won you your week. Let's be honest. If you, a lot of these guys are not players that you would necessarily have started, but if you did, it probably pushed you over the edge. And I think as we're going through this, the big discussion is going to be, do you see the performances like these continuing? You know, how sure are we that is this the real deal or is this more of a mirage? You know, so as we go through it, let's keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
So our big winner of the week here. Oh, baby. It makes me so happy as a Packer fan to say this. Davante Adams. Oh, baby. 41.6 points last week. The wide receiver one on the week. Man, what do you have? 14 receptions. Oh, well over 100 yards. Like, he was just balled out last week. Had a huge target share in that offense. Obviously, we've known that he was in discussion as the number one overall wide receiver preseason. I think this really solidifies it. And barring injury, I see this trend continuing. I think Rodgers and Adams have a great chemistry together, and they're going to continue to force feed Adams as long as he's going to be open.
Agreed. This is the one. I mean, this is the easy one here on this list. In terms of projecting if this can and will continue happening, yes, it can. I think very much that it will. Even though, like, look, all of the other receivers got involved, and we'll talk about another one of them here. Lazard and MVS were both heavily involved. Aaron Jones got some work. He was actually a really big red zone threat in terms of receiving. Aaron Jones led them with targets inside the 20. But yeah, it's Davante Adams. I think a lot of the other part of it, with the other guys getting more involved, had to do with Minnesota's defense being pretty well crippled in their secondary. They had some issues there at cornerback that were exploited early and often, and it was glorious to see, but they're not always going to get those types of plus matchups. So it'll be curious to see what his true floor looks like moving forward here.
Yeah, I agree. But I feel like he is going to be pretty safe throughout the season. But as we said, MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, for those of you who do not know the abbreviation, and Lazard, they both, like you said, had a big role in the offense. Which one of those do you see becoming the de facto number two in this offense? I know we're always looking for it's an Aaron Rodgers offense. Who's going to be the number two, and are they going to be fantasy viable? Do you see one of these two stepping forward, or is it more of a whoever Rodgers has a better chemistry with that week, or maybe it's matchup based?
I don't even know if it's matchup based. I think it's based more on, is what we saw in week one the standard? As in, are we going to see a lot more play action passes downfield? Because if so, then MVS is the number two there. He's the guy. He's the deep option. And if they're able to run that offense the way that I hope that they can, and let Aaron cook, so to speak, then it's MVS. But if it falls a little bit more and the games look more like last year, where he's pressured a little bit more, and we should note Lane Taylor was out last, got injured, I believe, in the early third quarter last week. I don't know if he's coming back or how soon he's coming back. So if there's offensive line instability, give me Lazard. And I know that's a cop-out answer, but it's all I got.
Yeah, and what do you think about MVS and his dropsies he had? Because he had a couple pretty big, wide-open drops. It was good to see that Rodgers went back to him, as we saw later on in the game, but I don't know. That's a little concerning too. And maybe it was just the week one jitters, although he shouldn't have those at this point. He's been in the league for a few years now, but that does concern me a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, he made the tough contested catches, and then he dropped the easy ones. So it's just like focus drops
Right.
in my eyes. And I think you're right with the week one jitters thing with that. At least fingers crossed. I really do hope that there could be some sort of consistency there with MVS. If he could be a Deshaun Jackson light, I'd even be fine with that. Just let the guy have like 40 catches for 900 yards and 8 TDs. I'm totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's move on. We'll spare our listeners here with Packers talk for the time being. We'll move on. So Josh Jacobs came in as the RB1, 35.9 points here in a full PPR format. The big thing is he got game in the receiving side of it, which was really nice to see. I think everybody agreed in the offseason, like he is RB1 and has potential to be a high RB1, with the caveat that he would get involved in the passing game because he saw very limited receptions last year. But if this first game is any indication about how this season is going to go, oh man, sky's the limit for him. It was awesome to see.
It was surprising for me. You said that during the offseason, that was the hope and projection. I didn't see him getting this kind of target share. There's no way that I expected him to get six targets in this game, just because of the offseason moves that the Raiders did when they obviously kept Richard, and then there's Bryan Edwards who's brought in there, and then Devontae Booker. They kept saying that it was going to be a 1-2 punch there, which was silly. I thought that was nonsense, but I thought that he might sneak a few more targets than he did. He only got 3 to Jacobs 6. I don't know, man. I could see a world where he ends up averaging 4 targets a game, and that's enough for him to stay a mid-range RB1.
Absolutely. All right, and then Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 2 on the week with 33.9. I may need to start getting glasses here. Holy man, I know how to read. Wide receiver 2 on the week. I will admit I'm shocked by this. Calvin Ridley has shown his blow-up weeks in the past. So we knew this was definitely possible. I was definitely not one of those Ridley truthers out there. But someone's got to catch the touchdowns, I suppose, in this offense. We know it's not going to be Julio. So it was good to see, though. I mean, again, do you think this is something that is going to continue? Are we maybe starting to see changing of the guard with the whole Roddy White Julio thing back in the day? Or is it just a week one fluky thing? Julio's still the man. We have nothing to worry about.
I don't know if it's fluky necessarily. I wouldn't say that it's fluky, but there were 3 wide receivers there who all got 12 targets and all had 9 receptions and all had over 100 yards. So Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage all had a 12 for 9 stat line, put up over 100. Ridley got the touchdowns. So, yeah, you can't fault that. And like you said, it's become a joke, of course, but the fact that Julio never seems to get those touchdowns and they do have to go somewhere. And I'm a little surprised that nothing happened in the way of Todd Gurley there with that game, by the way. That was a surprise to me. So if that corrects itself a little bit, I could see the touchdown upside going away a little for Calvin Ridley. But I mean, he did lead them in red zone targets, so that's not nothing. I don't know if I'm ready to anoint him better for fantasy than Julio just yet, though.
Me either. I agree 100%. All right, Darius Slayton came in at wide receiver 5. I know there was a lot of. I know. All he does is score touchdowns. That's crazy. Seriously, just underrated. And I know, with Golden Tate there and Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, they have all the weapons on offense. He was like the lone highlight in this game that was just piss poor by the Giants. Let's be honest here. I think he's the real deal. I think we've all been sleeping on him. And I shouldn't say all of us, but I think a lot of the fantasy community was sleeping on him more than we should have been. And I'll be the first to admit it. Like I loved his upside, but I did not expect him to really take charge of the wide receiver core in New York and be the lead dog. But I don't know. After seeing this week, I think I may need to change my mind on this.
Yeah, I really do think that this dude is the truth. I don't know what you can pick at if you watch that game. What do you pick at with Darius Slayton? Like, what did he do wrong in that game? I know that he went away a little bit in the second half of the game. So in terms of just pure consistency, he's probably not going to be the most consistent wide receiver. And with Golden Tate out, I suppose you could say that's partly why he got so many targets. Well, besides Saquon, who we'll talk about a little bit later, having a real poor outing. But I don't know. The guy's game is just fantastic. So yeah, wheels up for him.
All right. We'll kind of zoom through the rest of these guys here a little bit. Nyheim Hines came in at the RB4 for the week. Obviously the hot waiver wire pickup of the week. Now with Marlon Mack out, I think he is in play for a flex option almost on a weekly basis here because they're going to have to spell Jonathan Taylor a bit. We did see Jonathan Taylor with a number of receptions, which is great, but I can't imagine him being in the Christian McCaffrey 99% snap share on the field all the time for the Colts. So I think that Nyheim Hines, he definitely moves up now where he is in consideration for a flex play every single week.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. We talked about him a little bit during the offseason, just in terms of like getting targets. We knew Phillip Rivers loves to dump off to his running backs. So I figured he'd be involved. Didn't think he'd be involved this much. Didn't think he would get that kind of red zone rushing attempts, by the way. What in the fuck?
Yeah, he was involved super early on. So it's not like he got involved after Marlon Mack went out. He was involved very early on. So they obviously had a role planned out for him going into the season. And I think RB4 on the week, he's definitely got the upside. Is this going to be like an Austin Eckler light type situation where it's all receiving work and then maybe like a little goal line upside? I don't know. But I like what I saw out of week 1 here.
Yeah, as long as Rivers is the starting quarterback there, he's a locked-in flex option for me.
And then Malcolm Brown came in RB5, 26 points. Keep an eye on that situation. Is he going to be the starting running back moving forward? Is it going to take Cam Akers a little bit to acclimate?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yes.
I just don't see this continuing week in and week out here with Malcolm Brown. I mean, he is a solid running back. There's a reason why the Rams kept him on the team when he was a restricted free agent and matched the offer. They obviously liked him, but if they really felt like he was going to be the lead dog there, they wouldn't have spent such high draft capital on Akers.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, I guess you could say that about the Darrell Henderson pick from last year, too. It's like, why spend a pick on Akers if you've got that guy there? But they clearly just don't like Henderson that much, whereas they love Akers. Everything we've heard about in the camp, they love Akers. So I say you've got, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks of Malcolm Brown as a really viable start. Like, I would not have him on my bench until it comes out that Akers is the guy. But I just see that coming sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I had to throw this one in here just for you, Jake. Robby Anderson coming out of nowhere, getting out of the Adam Gase black hole that sucks in fantasy talent, apparently. Coming in at wide receiver 6 here. Whew. So my question is, we always known he's had the talent. Obviously, you were super high on him last year, one of your drinking buddies. What do we see moving forward and in this offense? Because we have DJ Moore, we've got Curtis Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. Is Robby Anderson going to be more involved than we thought? Or what? What do you think?
It's hard to say that he won't be when you just look at the stats and how efficient he was. And I'd always thought maybe because Matt Rule is there, that Robby Anderson gets a real shot this year. But I didn't expect him to be shot out of a goddamn cannon in week 1 this way, or any week really. Like we obviously know that Robby is capable of boom weeks, no matter the offense. He showed that on the Jets, and he definitely had those boom weeks, but he had a whole lot of bust following those. But if he's getting 8 targets a game, all of those, again, talking about the 3 wide receivers there, they all got play. They all got targeted, all got at least 8 targets on the game. McCaffrey did not get very targeted very much in this game, which was odd. I think he gets to steal some more targets going forward. I don't know who they come from necessarily. My guess would be Curtis Samuel. I'm not projecting this every week for Robby by any chance, but all of a sudden he's like, hey, he could be a top 20 guy by end of season.
Yeah, and I think he's definitely in consideration for a flex play on a weekly basis here moving forward, at a minimum, until we see maybe a little bit more of how involved he actually is with this offense.
Which you can afford to do because you got this guy in like round 16 probably, so you have some free reign to do that.
Wire, let's be honest.
Fair.
All right, next we have Mitchell Trubisky.
I had to mention this.
QB.
I had to.
Well, you have to.
It's weird. It's fucking weird because even though I think some people projected Trubisky to have a good game this week, like just the matchup was very good against the Lions, he was not doing well for the first 3 quarters of that game. All of his fantasy points really came in the fourth quarter. I think he scored 3 fourth quarter touchdowns. Literally, you got everything in the fourth quarter. So without that comeback, you're looking at a really terrible day. He still didn't crack 300 yards. I think much worse days are ahead for Mitch. And I think even as soon as this week could potentially be that. He gets the Giants, who are a beatable matchup, but I still don't know that I see him beating them that badly.
Yeah, just one of those things. If you started him, you probably won your week, let's be honest, because you did put up a top 12, top 10 performance. But yeah, I agree. This is probably an anomaly, not really the real deal here. Dallas Goedert coming through for tight ends here with number 1 overall on the week. Over 100 yards, got the TD. I think with Philadelphia's injury issues, to put it lightly here, on their offense, I think they are going to be running both Goedert and Ertz at the same time, kind of a la the Patriots a number of years ago with Hernandez and Gronk. So I think this could be the next iteration of that, and I think you're going to see them both on the field quite a bit. And I think Goedert is in play every week from here on out. He was a top 12 tight end last year. Both him and Ertz were top 12, and I think they could do it again this year.
Yeah, Goddard's been closing the gap. We've seen it for the last couple of years. Last year, especially, he started to really close the gap between him and Ertz. I think this is the year that it finally happens. Like it finally is going to be overtaken by Goddard, I think. And the contract stuff with Ertz just murkies the water even a little bit more. So yeah, I like Goddard quite a bit.
And then one last one here to throw in, just because he made his week 1 appearance, as he does every single year, coming in at the wide receiver 10, Mr. Sammy Watkins, the Lizard King.
You did it, Sammy. You did it once again. You fucked us all over once again with your week 1 start, because now the poor bastards who have you rostered now have to decide for next week, do I actually risk this? Do I actually give it the go? I don't know that I could personally.
If I had Watkins on my team for some reason, and I'll be honest, I just stay away from him because I don't trust it. I think if I had him, I would put out trade offers and get whatever I could for him at this point. And if for some reason he continues to perform at a high level, I will just take my lumps on that. And that's just me personally. I know he showed out, in the Super Bowl and in the playoffs at the end of last year. So maybe this is a continuation of that, and he is going to be more involved on a week-to-week basis. But we've gotten burned on this so many times before that, like I said, I'm willing to take my lumps if I'm wrong.
You trade him for a third?
Sure.
Yeah? That'll get it done for you? Okay.
Yeah. I would take a ham sandwich for him.
All right, fair enough. Speaking of ham sandwiches, it is time for a moment from our advertiser, Veyer Watches. How is that connected? You don't want to get ham all over your Veyer watch. DTFF is presented by Veyer, which was founded with the goal of building an affordable everyday wristwatch that blends tasteful design with extreme durability and functionality. Veyer returns a sense of dignity, ham-free, to affordable wristwatches and are built to last. Veyer is a true American watch company specializing in quartz and automatic watches. They're offering our listeners 15% off if you use the code PODGO15. That's PODGO 15. Go to VeyerWatches.com. That's VAER Watches.com to learn more and get your timepiece today.
Go out and get it.
Go get it.
No ham on it, though.
Zero ham watch.
All right. Let's move in to the melancholy and infinite sadness portion of our show this week. Guys that underperform for one reason or another. Are we worried about this moving forward, or is it just more of an anomaly?
Yeah,
we will tell you. All right. Saquon Barkley, bad week. For the rushing side. Receiving side, 6 receptions, 60 yards. That's fine. But 15 rushes for 6 yards, not good. That's not good, Cotton. Obviously, this is just an anomaly. I expect Saquon Barkley to bounce back. I'm not too worried about it here.
Yeah, Steelers defense is just so legit. You can't fault him that much. I mean, it is wild that it's 6 yards, though. That is still very disconcerting to just see that. I understand Pittsburgh is an amazing defense, but holy shit. Is it just that they didn't trust or that they didn't believe Daniel Jones could beat them, and so they said, let's try and make the kid beat us?
I think so. I think that was it. They had a game plan, shut down Barkley, force Jones to throw the ball, let him beat us if he can, and it worked.
Yeah, he did not.
Next, Nick Chubb, 10 rushes for 60 yards. This one, it concerns me a little bit. Not a ton. I was already down on Nick Chubb a little bit going into this season, just with Kareem Hunt there, the change in head coach and kind of offensive philosophy for them. Kareem Hunt was very much involved, and I think that if the Browns look as bad as they did this week, and they're going to be playing from behind more often than not, and especially in the AFC North, that's probably going to be a thing most weeks, I could see Hunt being much more involved as the passing down back, and if they're playing from behind, he'll be on the field more than Chubb. So I am a little concerned. I'm not in full panic mode right now by any stretch of the imagination. It's 1 week, but definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on. And if I had Nick Chubb, I just keep an eye on it because I just don't know how this season's going to go for them.
Yeah, and if you have him, you have to hold on to him for right now because there's no way people are coming. Probably nobody's coming calling for a fair asking price with Nick Chubb. But he does get the Bengals this week. You have to assume if there's a week for him to kind of right the ship a little bit, it's this week 2 against Cincinnati. And if he does, that's the time I might consider getting out, though, because we've talked about this in the offseason. Neither one of us are big on him, especially this year. So that could be a prime trading opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Christian Kirk really had a nice disappearing act this week. Only 4 targets, no yards, no receptions. Ooh, what happened there?
DeAndre Hopkins happened there.
Obviously, he had a great game. Larry Fitz was involved. I think this is an anomaly. I think they really went out of their way to feature Hopkins, as they should. Let's be honest. He's still an elite wide receiver, but I think they really made the point of going out, getting him involved early and often, proving that, again, this trade was good for them and the Cardinals, and he fits their style of offense. Kirk's going to have his weeks, but maybe he's not as safe as we all thought he was going to be coming into this season.
Yeah, I don't think you can project him to be safe at all there. I do think that this is another trade opportunity, though. If you want this guy for the long term, this is as low as that asking price is going to get for Christian Kirk. And I agree. I think this is a total anomaly there. I don't really know what happened other than they decided to feature the hell out of DeAndre Hopkins because Murray clearly loves him. And we should know, we didn't bring him up in the beginning section here of the winners, but DeAndre Hopkins with 16 targets, 14 receptions, and 151 yards. I'm confident taking my L on my offseason projection of DeAndre Hopkins and assuming that with him being traded to a new team, there was no way he was going to be a top 2 or 3 guy this year. I look like a goddamn idiot.
Yeah, same here. I had him still as a wide receiver 1, top 12, but I did not expect him to finish where we're used to seeing him finishing on a yearly basis. Again, 1 week does not make a season, but if things continue this way, I mean, he is in play for that wide receiver 1 overall. And if you drafted him possibly in the second round, most likely in the second round, let's be honest, possibly third round, depending on how your draft went, oh, you are smiling all the way to the bank right now because that is just straight cash, homie.
Can I just say that I took DeAndre Hopkins in the third round of Scott Fish Bowl?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
You take that mini victory lap.
I had to because I was off him all off season, but I did get him in that spot just because I felt like I had to.
Nice. All right. Kerryon Johnson. I know we had some concerns going into the season with him. The whole knee injury, he's wearing the brace. They signed Adrian Peterson. They draft the rookie, DeAndre Swift, but only 7 rushes for 14 yards. That's not good. That's not good. Adrian Peterson was very much involved. DeAndre Swift was very much involved. Not good for my Kerryon Johnson share. I'm not going to lie. It makes me very sad. It seems like now he's on the outside here with those other 2 backs, assuming health, of course, and maybe he'll get traded to another team here after the season's over where he has more of a chance to show what he can do. But I think if you have him, he is probably fairly safe to drop at this point. I don't know that I would hold on to him.
No, I just don't think there's any reason to. Not a single target all game. Even Adrian Peterson got 3 targets. So, yeah, if that's the barometer that you have to go against, Adrian Peterson putting up 93 yards on the ground and an extra 3 receptions. Like, come on, man. Kerryon's not. There's just no way that he actually gets out there in enough of a way to make him a viable fantasy option.
All right, Jake, I got to break in here. We got a question from one of our listeners here on YouTube from FTD34. Should I trade David Johnson, Odell, and Tariq Cohen for Devontae Adams, or am I giving up too much?
If this is Dynasty, which I'm assuming it is, if it's a Dynasty, let's just assume Dynasty PPR. FTD, fill us in if this is not correct. If it's Dynasty PPR, I am making that trade. If the other person would actually accept that for Devontae Adams, you bet your ass I would make that in a heartbeat.
Half point PPR, he says.
Done. Still done. So such an easy call for me. Devontae Adams is going to be the guy there for years. David Johnson, while he looked great in week 1, it was just 1 week. I'm still not thoroughly convinced at his target share there. I think he has upper running back 2 potential, certainly, for this year. And then after this year, I don't know. Odell is he's really bumming me out, man. I can't get a grasp on him. I don't want to deal with his headaches anymore.
Yeah, and like we were just saying, we're not sure with the offense, or at least for me. I shouldn't speak for you, Jake, but for me, I'm not sure about this offense and how that offense is going to shake out. I would much rather go for Jarvis in that offense if I was looking to get one of those offensive pieces. I'm not high on Odell either.
But yeah, Devontae is a top 2 guy. So yeah, I will absolutely make that trade. Even though I kind of like Tariq Cohen still. We've talked about that a little bit. We probably won't talk about it much, if ever again, because he's underwhelming. But I did like him a bit.
Yes. So, yeah. Thank you for the question there, FTD. And for the rest of the listeners out there, we will answer on-air questions if you do present them to us. So don't hesitate to jump in the chat here. We are here, and we will answer them live on the air for you.
That's right. You don't even have to ask that nicely, honestly. All right. Should we talk about Mark Ingram? Can I just announce right now, as the Mark Ingram truther here coming into this season, that I'm so disappointed in his usage for this first game. 10 rushes for 29 yards. Makes me sad in my bones.
It is very sad. And is it because has he finally hit that wall? Is Dobbins just that good that he really showed out in camp, and they're like, we got to get this kid involved? Was it a function of just the offense and the game flow? I don't know, but I can't say that I envision this right out of the gate for him.
No, I don't even think that, at least this week, I don't think it was a Dobbins thing so much as just, I don't know why they weren't running the ball. I mean, when you look at the end score of this game, it was against the Browns, and you got a 38-6 final score, and they ran the ball 10 times with Mark Ingram, 7 times with J.K. Dobbins, 7 times with Lamar Jackson, and 4 with Gus Edwards. You just expect those numbers to be higher, or at least I do. I mean, I don't understand what happened there. And the fact that none of them got targets whatsoever. Not a single running back ended up with a target in this game. Mark Andrews got some love, and so did Hollywood Brown, which was great to see, but it was confusing, man. So I don't know. I really hope that he comes out next week and they give him some more good run and he proves himself. But if he does not after next week, I'm going to go full freak out, I think, with Mark Ingram.
I agree. And then Austin Hooper, another disappointing week, especially with Njoku going out. I know he was featured early. I'm hoping this is just more of a mirage here, and he will be more involved. Although, again, as we've talked about with this offense, I just don't know what to expect anymore with it. So my confidence is kind of waning there with Hooper, unfortunately. What do you think?
Yeah, I just think we all expected the square peg to fit into the round hole better than it had in that first game. But now that Njoku's out, I think the opportunity is certainly there. I don't think we should expect anything close to what we saw in Atlanta still last year. But there's hope. There is hope for there. You have to be patient with him, especially again now with him hypothetically being the number 1 tight end there. I suppose the young rookie Bryant could step into a bigger role than we think. But I'm willing to be patient with Hooper for at least another couple weeks.
All right, Jake, we have another question here in the chat.
Ooh.
So this is from Club Fantasy FFL.
Hey, we're following them on the double header here. Actually,
That's
triple
right.
header. You guys should also be listening. If you are watching us right now, you should step away in a couple of minutes to watch FF Confidential after us. But go ahead.
That's right. We are the delicious meat in the middle of this sandwich. So they said, was just offered this today in one of my home redraft leagues. They're James Conner and Allen Robinson for my Josh Jacobs. And it says, you do that, right? With the laughing, crying emoji face.
Yeah, that's the appropriate emoji there. Clearly somebody trying to unload some assets to get away from all of the injuries and potential drama there. I do love Allen Robinson. So, and if this trade stuff is overblown, I honestly don't think it's as crazy as as maybe some folks believe it is, but I'm still going to hold Josh Jacobs there. At worst, you can get a lot better return than that for right now, even though I do love A-Rob.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Couple more here of our sadness here before we move on. Matt Breida, 5 rushes for 22 yards. That is disappointing only because Howard got hurt and we saw Myles Gaskin kind of take control of that backfield for the day. I'm kind of a wait and see approach for this. I really thought he would be more involved with the passing game, but we'll see. It's a whole right now.
I'm fully out. I'm out on Matt Breida. I was barely in on him to begin with, and then 5 rushing attempts there. No targeting to speak of. It's God, it's so gross. It's Myles Gaskin season in Miami. If that excites you in any way, shape, or form.
And McCole Hardman, only 1 reception for 6 yards. I think this is kind of what I shouldn't say a lot of us. I'll speak for myself only here. Kind of what I expected. McCole Hardman's going to be that boomer bust type player week in and week out. As long as Sammy's there, he's going to be the 3rd wide receiver on the team, not counting Kelsey or Edwards-Helaire on the team. So it's just going to be a function of play call and if he gets open and Mahomes sees him. So I'm kind of out on him for right now. If you have him in Dynasty, definitely, obviously, hold him on your bench. But he's just no way can be consistent right now unless something changes in that offense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, redraft, you drop him. I have no bones about that at all. In Dynasty, he's 100% hold. I think next year could be a big breakout year for him, though, providing that Sammy finally moves the fuck on as he should. Then we won't have to talk about him ever again in the Chiefs offense, ruining our days.
And then one last one to talk about here. Joe Mixon, 19 rushes for 69 yards. Nice. 1 reception for 2 yards. Yeah. I was kind of down on Mixon a little bit to begin the season anyway. I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know. I guess I'm just out on this.
Look, can I go ahead and take this one because I was banging this drum as hard as I possibly could over the offseason that I do not trust Joe Mixon in this offense right now. So the fact that people were so stuck on him as a high-end running back 1, not even just a running back 1, but a high-end running back 1 was always crazy to me. The rookie quarterback, the offensive line that was in shambles last year and is relying on ostensibly a rookie to step in and fix everything on the O-line. It's silliness. And then Gio Bernard got more work than I ever thought he would, though. So that was weird to see. I think better days are certainly ahead for Joe Mixon. I don't think you see this kind of stat line every week, but I also don't think the guy cracks the top 12 for running backs this year as a whole.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. Woo!
Look at us.
How do you feel about that? That was just a week 1 wrap up here.
It feels good. It feels good to be able to talk about real things that happened instead of just hypothetical things that maybe could happen. It feels like we accomplished something here tonight, Dustin. I'm proud of us.
It does, but we're not quite done yet. But wait, there's more. Let's look ahead here for week 2. Let's highlight some of the matchups for this week. I'll start us off here with highlighting a couple that I really like that have some good fantasy impact for. The first one I want to highlight here is the Rams versus the Eagles. I really like this for the Rams offense. The Eagles, they just did not look overly impressive. Obviously, they lost to the Washington football team, which everybody thought was going to be awful and maybe win 2 games on the season. So I really like the Rams offensive pieces in this game. I think Goff is going to bounce back pretty good. It's not like he had a terrible week this week, but I do think he's going to bounce back and have a quarterback 1 week. Obviously, I want to point out the Packers. They're playing the Lions. That defense is just horrible. We should be able to fire up Rodgers, Adams, Jones without hesitation.
Of course. Can I talk about the worst game that you're going to see this week, which of course is on Thursday Night Football? So it's the Bengals versus the Browns tomorrow night.
There's a reason why I jumped over that one.
But I need to highlight how awful it's going to be for real NFL watching purposes, but also it could be sneaky good for the mess that it becomes for some of the offensive guys. Like, I actually think Joe Mixon here's an opportunity to play him because he could legitimately have a top 10 week against the Browns. I think he should actually get a little bit more target share there too. So I don't know. It's going to be gross to watch. Maybe don't watch it, but I wouldn't hate putting some of those guys into my lineups.
Yeah, there's a couple other really good games I like. Afternoon game on Sunday. It's Ravens versus Texans, which should be a really good game. Should be a lot of offense in that game, which I really like. And then the Sunday night game is shaping up to be a really good one too, with the Patriots versus the Seahawks. I don't know. That one's going to be really interesting to watch. I'm glad it's actually a Sunday night game. Should be a lot of fun. Those are the
Those are the fucking games you got to watch, you guys.
Yes, no, those are the ones I wanted to highlight. Any others you want to highlight, Jake?
No, just all of them. It's another week of
all football.
So just watch it all. You're going to love it.
That's right. Okay, so let's do our start of the week and bust of the week here, and then get the hell out.
Let's do it.
All right. Who do you have for your start of the week? One player.
Yes. So across all positions this week, I'm very, very interested in a couple of people. So I didn't want to have to make this decision between the two of them, but I'm doing it for you because I love you, listeners and viewers. It's Jonathan Taylor for me. He is my start of the week. I'm very excited now to see what he gets to do against the Vikings, who were not great this last week, as we already discussed. I hope sincerely that he gets enough targets to justify him being my start of the week. But I honestly have him as a top 6 running back this week. And so I'm super goddamn excited to see him run all over the Vikes. How about you?
My start of the week is Chris Carson versus the Patriots. The Sunday night game that I alluded to. I know there's a lot of questions about Chris Carson because he got the touchdowns on very limited carries this week. I think that was more of a function of the Seahawks kind of easing him in a little bit, coming back from that hip injury. No preseason games to kind of get under your belt here. I know they were saying all systems go. He's healthy, no restrictions whatsoever. But I really do think that this first game was more of a let's ease him in, limit his carries a little bit, let him get some hits under his belt, and I think they're going to let him go now moving forward. And the fact that he got the touchdowns is great. And the Patriots defense doesn't scare me nearly as much as it has in previous seasons. They only gave up 87 yards last week rushing, but it was against the Dolphins. There's not much to expect there. So against a much better offensive line, a much better offense in general, much better running back, I expect Chris Carson to have a big day.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Now, bust of the week here, it would be cheating to put Sammy Watkins in here because that's what I really, truly want to do, just to hammer that point home for everybody. But then I'd feel like a double asshole if he actually went out and did something. So I'm not going to do that. And instead, this one hurts. I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson, quarterback for the Houston Texans, who is going against Baltimore.
It hurts me right here. In the heart. If you can't see, that's my heart.
It's not it doesn't feel good to talk about that, but it's just a matchup that really scares me for him. The Ravens defense is so solid, and that offensive line is such a problem still, as we saw in the kickoff game against the Chiefs. Chiefs have a good defense. I'm not taking anything away from them. They are not Ravens level defense. So hopefully I'm proven wrong, and it's just a case of week one jitters, communication issues, etc., that caused Deshaun Watson to look like a scrambled egg out there. But I don't expect that to be the case, so I'm expecting bad things for Deshaun this week. How about you?
All right. And my bust of the week is James Robinson, waiver
darling
versus Tennessee this week. The Jags just aren't that great. I think this last week they caught the team off guard, and Tennessee is a much better defense. I mean, they gave up 130 yards last week against Denver, but Denver has a pretty solid offensive line, and their running backs are Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. Two quality, I'll use that word lightly, quality running backs. Now that there's a little bit of tape on James Robinson, there's 1 week. I think that he is going to get stuffed. I think they're going to force Minshew to throw the ball and do Minshew things, throw the football over the mountains, Uncle Rico style. And yeah, I think Robinson's going to be a bust for you guys this week.
You have to really hope that his usage pays off and doesn't goose egg you. That's the only thing that's going to save you, in my opinion, because I agree. Mm-hmm. But hopefully the usage is enough to at least make it bearable.
That's right. That's right. Well, that pretty much ends the show for us. How are you feeling about it, Jake?
Very excited because we just had a week one show. And again, I did not expect us to be talking about real NFL football this week. So this is all a cherry on top. This is gravy. I love it.
Yep. Yeah. Just a reminder out there to all you guys and gals, please check your waiver wire. Waivers ran this morning. It's Wednesday evening when we're recording right now. Check your waiver wire for players that were dropped. People like to drop players in a panic, whether it was injury or some of these players that gave you the infinite sadness this week, and it was a panic move. You can pick up guys for free right now without having to spend any of your fab or waiver wire priority. And even if they're injured and you have room on your bench, guys that you can hold and it will pay off later in the season. So check it out because you never know who's going to drop. Correct, Jake? Agree with me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Whew. All right. Great episode. Thank you for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. Find us on Twitter at Drinking Fantasy. You can find me at FF Dusty Dog on Twitter.
You can find me at Jake Trowbridge because that is my goddamn name.
And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.